So with the engine running, we do about 13.5 volts. That's with the freezer and our laptop's 280 watts. The car's been running for about 20 minutes now, so I'm going to shut it down. It's the next day. 3 days, 2 hours without power. We have surpassed the outage caused by the ice storm. That's pretty wild. On the power company site, I checked last night, I haven't checked yet today. When I put in our phone number now, it says that there are no outages for our location. But if I look under the village our phone number used to go under, it's now been moved to Thursday night, so I have no idea where we're at right now. There's our specs, 11.5 volts, and now we're doing about 320 watts. Just got through a cycle running the deep freeze for 45 minutes or so. We are at 12.3 volts after shutting it off. Whoops. I'm gonna shut this off. .8 volts. Now got the fridge running, we're at 13.4 volts. Fridge plus mom's laptop and the internet router, about 190 watts. So basically the whole system, how it works is, in the beginning, you start the car, plug in the deep freeze, and once the deep freeze is running, shut the car off. And it'll run for about 45 minutes before it's time to recharge the battery. So when it's time to do that, you shut the whole system off, start the car, plug in the refrigerator, and let the car run for about 10 minutes. Then after 10 minutes, unplug the refrigerator and plug the freezer back in, shut the car off, and the freezer will run from the battery for about 45 minutes, then rinse and repeat. The only reason we run the fridge, besides the fact that there are of course a few things in there that we want to keep cool, milk and stuff, but the reason we unplug the freezer and plug in the fridge is, of course, when you go to start the car, you have to shut the thing off. I mean, you can leave it on, but as soon as the car starts to crank over, there isn't going to be enough voltage and that thing will shut down anyway. And of course, once the freezer shuts down, you have to wait a few minutes before you turn it back on for it to depressurize. Yesterday, one cycle of starting the car, it didn't crank over. It was the first time I had let this thing run down until it shut itself off at 10.5 volts, and the car didn't crank over. But luckily, I just let it sit for 5 minutes, and when I tried again, it started. Funny, when it did crank over, it was plenty fast, as it usually is, so evidently, at least with this particular car, you can't characterize when the batteries run down by slow cranking. Apparently, with this car, it just goes from regular speed cranking to not cranking at all. It's worth noting also that in about, let me think, probably an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours of the car idling to charge the battery has made the gas gauge barely budge at all. So that's pretty nice. Time to start up again. Oh, it was slow that time, but it got it. I need to tweak the times a little bit. I'm gonna run it for 15 minutes and have power going without it running for 35 minutes. This is getting very monotonous. I think that was right on the edge of not cranking over. I'm doing 15:30 now, 15 minutes running, 30 not. This is day 5 of no power. We lost power, just to recap, we lost power Saturday morning. And right now it is Wednesday, almost noon. So we've been without power for 4 days and 4 or 5 hours. And we're getting pretty tired of this crap. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to go to a friggin' job fair. You know, that's kind of a place where you want to be clean, but by the looks of it, that's not going to happen. The power company has us under a different village now. I don't know why. They keep putting our number under all these different villages. But the restoration time is still the same, tomorrow night. And it's funny, I know every day I keep saying tomorrow night because that's what they keep telling us. They tell us the next day. And then the next day comes and they say the day after that. So right now it says tomorrow night. And they've actually officially stated that to the press now. They've stated to the press that 80% of customers who originally lost power will be up and going again by Thursday night. They released a list of the towns and villages that would have power back by Thursday night. And this village where we are is not one of them. But the village that the website has put us under is on it. So I have no clue what to think. Something squeaks under there, I don't know what. I don't know if it's the bearings on an accessory or what. Well, by golly, I decided just for the heck of it to see, with the fridge already running, if the freezer would start up, and it did. Both the fridge and the freezer are now running at the same time. With both of them, plus our laptops and stuff, total power usage is 370 watts. So I've suggested to Mom that we just leave the car running continuously now and let both the fridge and the freezer run. That way there won't be any interruptions, because I don't know how much cooling efficiency we're losing by having them turn off and on all the time. So 370 watts, we're doing about 32, 33 amps on the 12 volt side, so hopefully the alternator doesn't mind that too much. Our voltage is staying at 13.2 without a load at all. With the car running, it's usually around 14 volts, but 13.2, that's all right. That's well above safe voltage. Engine's vibrating a bit more now. The alternator's creating quite a load. The engine fan is running now. That's actually the first time I've heard the engine fan start up. Yeah, we're really moving some power now, so I say it's best just to keep the car running continuously. 370 watts, we're keeping it 13.2 volts, that's good. I figure if I were to draw too much power, the alternator wouldn't be able to keep the battery up, and even with the engine running, the voltage would just dip lower and lower. No warning lights. Temperature is normal. Fuel, when I first started out this morning, it was just barely below the halfway mark. So we're probably gonna use a bit more fuel now. Engine RPMs are staying normal. I know the Chevy Cobalt had an electronic feature in which it would adjust the engine speed when idling to compensate for increased electric loads, so it would keep the battery voltage up. I don't know if this car does that. Evidently it does at least keep, increase the throttle to keep the engine at normal idling speed, 850 RPM. Well, I consulted with Mom, and even though she harped on me for trying once again to run the freezer when the fridge was already running, she didn't want me to try it again for risk that something would break. But since the deed had already been done and it worked, Mom said we're go for leaving the car running continuously. I hear the engine fan comes on for a few seconds and goes off. The fans on the unit itself aren't running yet. So as long as we're going to be doing this, and we're going to be here for a couple more hours, as long as we're going to run it continuously, I'll run an extension cord down to my bedroom. The frog's been in complete darkness since Saturday, although he's been happy as a clam, but I'll plug his light in so he gets some light. For the first time since, when would it have been? Thursday night, I think, I got my hair washed. We heated up some rainwater on the propane stove, and Mom soaked my hair and I washed it. And boy, it's a hack job, but it sure feels good to have semi-clean hair. I think I'm gonna go get it cut later today when we go into town. It's also worth noting that this is the longest that either myself or Mom have been without power in our entire lives. Before that, the longest we had ever been without power was the ice storm in 1998. That was 3 days. Today we're on our 5th day. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now, so we're going on 4 days, 6 hours, I think. The alternator's hanging us at 13.0 volts. I was told by the guy who cut my hair earlier today that this is actually the worst electrical interruption in the history of New Brunswick. There has never been a worse province-wide power outage than this, and I don't doubt that at all. So right now it's 10 minutes to 6. At 6 I gotta start the car again. So it'll be 4 days, 11 hours that we've been without power. This is our 5th day without power, and I've filmed an hour about this outage now, so I can see this is probably going to have to be a multi-part video. I'll probably split it up into like 2 days each or whatever. I checked the power company's website, and for the first time in 2 or 3 days, we're actually under the correct village now. When I put in our phone number, it brings us to the correct village, and it says the same thing, Thursday night. Pretty much everywhere in the province now says Thursday night. I'm starting to wonder if that voltage output ever deviates from 120 volts. I wonder if it's just programmed to say 120 volts. I would have tried to get the fridge and freezer running at the same time again, but unfortunately I had the refrigerator set to a moderate temperature setting, and the fridge actually got cold enough that it reached the threshold of that setting and shut down. Well, I turned the thermostat all the way back up to the coldest setting, but it still didn't come on. So I tried, just for the heck of it, to turn the thermostat all the way down and back up again. Well, I didn't know that activated the defrost, which turns on a heating element. So now I gotta wait for the defrost timer to run out before I can run the fridge again. I can hear the neighbors across the road. They have a generator running. Let's take a look at the debris the storm left on the ground here. Nothing much. Many small tree branches. If you guys remember, I have a video from a year or two ago. I think it was 2 years ago now, when Tropical Storm Irene hit here, and the personal damage in this yard was about the same, just a bunch of small tree branches. However, you may remember up there, that big tree that snapped. Worst electrical disaster in the history of the province. For some reason, I never suspected that. I figured there had been worse things. I figured the ice storm of 1998 was worse, but I guess not. They're saying on the news now that everyone was unprepared. Wow. Just bark. They're saying now that everyone was unprepared for this storm, because usually we tend to laugh off a tropical storm. A hurricane we'll prepare for, a tropical storm, people just kind of laugh it off. That's because we've never had a tropical storm do this much damage. Huh. This branch. Wow, this tree's still somewhat in the ground, but I don't know how that happened, but it's just knocked down.